Rocktober battles the elements and succeeds. Brand new event alert. The Legacy Crown is here, and we talk some men's college water polo, all coming up next on The Counterattack. Hey everyone, Greg Meskel here with you. Thanks for joining us on The Counterattack here on USA Water Polo and Overnght. We've got a couple of great conversations on the way. We'll talk all things Legacy Crown, the new women's water polo event, pitting top collegiate teams, club teams, and a couple of academy squads. Coach Adam Krikorian, leader of the USA Women's Water Polo National Team, joins us to break down that event, how it came about, and what's next. We also check in with Fordham men's head coach Brian Bacharach. Rams, they have a big West Coast swing on the way where they'll take top competition head on, including Cal and Stanford. We'll get his take on the season thus far, coming off a stellar run a year ago, and much more. But first, we start in Mesa, Arizona. Now, you think of Arizona, I always think of warm temps, a lot of sunshine. Not the case, unfortunately, for our friends in Mesa this past weekend. The weather rolled in on Sunday. That disrupted the competition quite a bit, unfortunately. Some games had to be canceled. First off, hats off to the organizers, volunteers, USA Water Polo staff, the Mesa Water Polo Club, everyone at the Keno Aquatic Center that made the event happen and just kind of rolled with the punches. Weather unpredictable. People had flights. You have to try and make the best of a tough situation. In the end, a great weekend had by all, given the circumstances. Let's take a look back at the results and some of the big winners and tell you who took home medals in all the different divisions. This tourney continues to get better year over year. Let's talk placements, and then we'll hear from some of the competitors at Rocktober. Start first with the Rockettes division. Greenwich, the girls in at first place. Honolulu and the Texas Mavericks rounding things out.
We just played a really nice game. I feel like all the girls on the other team, they had very good sportsmanship. It was just a very nice game to play, especially since an exciting game. It ended with a shootout, so we didn't really know what's gonna happen.
Over to the Rock division. North Irvine claims gold, followed by Peak Polo and the Greenwich boys in a bronze.
They made a bunch of great goals. They were playing awesome. They're a great team.
The Roll division, a lot of Southern California here. SoCal in a first, 908 Water Polo in a second place, Commerce in a third.
They fought through everything. I mean, they did great. All of them, great, awesome.
The Rhythm division, Santa Barbara 805A, followed by East County Aquatics, and then Rose Bowl.
I'm proud of my team this weekend because everyone played really hard and everyone got to play and everyone got a goal and played their hardest.
And closing it out, the Rhyme division, Mesa A, Elmhurst, and Arapahoe Warrior Aquatics.
This is my first time doing it, and I like to go to new tournaments.
Make sure to check usawaterpolo.org for full results Also, all of our sportsmanship award winners as well. Now let's talk Legacy Crown. For fans of water polo, you know all about the men's national league, kind of an off-season club college event. Some of the college teams do play as clubs, but they compete in the off-season, gearing up for the fall slate. Opportunity now for women's water polo. There's often been competition in the fall for women's college teams, but this is now a big tentpole event to build towards the start of the college year in January. Plus, you get some elite club teams and some rising stars from the USA Water Polo Academy system. So again, it's coming this November 15, 16, Costa Mesa High School, Orange Coast College. They're right across the street from each other. Free admission. Great chance to watch a whole lot of water polo in one weekend. You've got all the top college teams, defending champ Stanford, UCLA, USC, Cal, Hawaii. The list goes on and on. Elite club teams, New York Athletic Club, LA Athletic Club, Olympic Club. We mentioned those academy teams. Every match streaming right here on Overnght live stats via 6/8. If you're in the area, no reason not to show up. Free admission. And remember, this is all in the spirit of the 25th anniversary of women's water polo joining the Olympic program back in Sydney. We talked with Brenda Villa last week about what a huge moment that was for the women's game. So the event starting this year, plans to keep building it and growing it as the years go on, but a great starting point here, the Legacy Crown. We talked with head coach Adam Krikorian from Team USA about this event, how it got started, and the hopes for the future in the first of two big conversations this week on the show. Hey everyone, our latest guest here on the Counterattack, a frequent visitor, Coach K, Adam Krikorian, head coach of the women's national team, joining us the week that the Legacy Crown is announced. Exciting stuff here for women's water polo, an event I know that you've dreamed of or dreamt of for a long time. Tell us kind of the journey for this event and what has you excited for this one coming November 15, 16 in SoCal.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Yeah, it's been this is our 123rd episode of this. I'm joking. The Legacy Crown. We are absolutely thrilled to be able to do something like this. I think it's always been our dream to be able to create some meaningful competition in this fall period. You know, I think when we think about the year in general, we think about the meaningful competitions and obviously there's high school, there's the collegiate season, which happens in the winter and spring. And then there's obviously the summer events, you know, capping off with JOs in the summer, but we really haven't had anything in the fall. And so for us, it's really about, again, creating a meaningful competition, in part in hopes to establish a benchmark that inspires training that leads up to that event, right? And when we talk about training, we talk about growth. And then also, I think this is just an opportunity for us to bring the community together. It's an opportunity for us to unite the college teams with the top college teams, with the top club teams, which typically would include masters athletes, and then also a couple of our national teams, our young national teams. So you're talking about pulling people from all different ages together in one place. And then I think lastly, we just wanted to create a buzz, get people excited about an event again in the fall that's specific to women's water polo and celebrates women's water polo in the right way.
An absolutely loaded field, the top college teams defending NCAA champ, Stanford in the mix, of course, all the contenders on the college scene, and then those elite clubs. You think about New York Athletic Club, Olympic Club, LA, and then some up and comers with the academy squads. When you think about the level of play, I think sometimes people think, well, off season, preseason, like how good could it be? But if the National League has shown us anything on the men's side, right, this can be some pretty high caliber water polo.
And that's exactly what we're hoping for. I mean, you mentioned it. You're talking about the best of the best, and I also want to be clear that, you know, this isn't intended just to be a national team event, right? This is an event that expands far beyond the national team, brings again the very best colleges, the best club teams, obviously our best young players, all in one place. And our hope is to have this unique combination of very high level and competitive spirit within the play that we see, but then also this, without trying to sound too corny, this joyous celebration of women's water polo. It is the 25th anniversary of the 2000 Olympic team, which in women's water polo extends far before that as well. But it signifies an important time in this place that we're in, and we want to do our best to put a high quality product in the pool, but also appreciate the fact that we're surrounded by people who love and support women's water polo.
As we're looking at the national team, because when these events come up, the athletes may split apart, whether it's club or their college. If you watch Team USA in Singapore this past summer and you're thinking about that team looking towards this event, can you give us a breakdown of where people might find some of their favorite players?
Yeah, that's great question. I think, unfortunately, we're not able to get some of our players that are overseas out here. I think this is just the first iteration. And I think my hope is that the next iterations, they're going to include some extensive thinking and just even beyond our borders here in the U.S. But the players that are currently on the national team, I mean, most of them are going to be with their collegiate teams and competing there. There are going to be a few with the top clubs as well. So it'll be fun to be able to see them. I always enjoy this as the national team coach, is not just coaching them and watching them together, but then watching them compete against one another. And they have quite a bond, obviously, that they've established being part of the national team. But there's also a competitive spirit that is required to be part of the national team. And you'll see that come out, whether they're playing for their college teams or club teams, or even perhaps the youth team that will also be participating.
We made the comparison a little bit ago to the National League, but I can't help but think about the UCLA men this season. They play National League largely as the Mission Club. They run through that, a very successful competition. It's kind of building towards the fall where they have proven to be one of the best teams in the country yet again. And I'm wondering if, even though it's a weekend, right, but can this start to be the beginning of something that helps set the tone or plants the seed for a championship run for a team come the spring?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, no doubt. And it doesn't have to be a college team that wins. I mean, you might see one of these club teams. Unfortunately, we've been tasked to seed the tournament. I think that's going to be maybe very controversial. I'm not quite sure how to do that. But again, going back to my first comment, it's about putting meaningful competition, and meaningful competition, again, inspires training. It inspires growth. It inspires reflection. And for this to be kind of at the end, for most collegiate teams at least, this is the end of or close to the end of their fall 20-hour period. So I know from my days back at UCLA, you wanted something to be able to have to shoot towards, and then you also wanted something to be able to reflect off of. And that's our hope, whether it provides momentum for someone or not, or for certain athletes as well. It's great for them, outside of just the teams. It's great for an athlete. Sometimes you don't know, you're floundering through this process, and you don't know how you're doing until you face a top team or another top athlete. And this again gives us and gives them a benchmark to kind of see where they're at.
Now, will you be coaching at all? Or you're just more of an observational commissioner type role? What's your status during this weekend?
I will be, yes, I don't know. I'm going to be national team scout / tournament director / I just kind of overseeing, I guess, as much as I can.
I'm so glad you said scout, because that's kind of where my mind went. Like, you have people but this is still early in a quad, right? There's a chance here for someone to get on your radar that maybe you hadn't seen that much of, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say there's some of this is selfish from a national team standpoint. I mean, it's. I think I threw this stat out before, but at the last World Championships, we didn't have, I think, 77 years of experience were gone from the 2024 team. So, we're replacing a lot, which opens up a lot of opportunity for a ton of people. We have a lot of young players that are a part of our our program right now. We have a team that just came off of winning the Junior World Championship for the first time since 2015. That a lot of those players are going to be highlighted with their college teams or their club teams or possibly the youth national team. So, it's a great opportunity for us to be able to take a look and to watch these players and see how they're developing and growing and watch them compete against the very best.
You mentioned this national team and the lack of experience, but now a chance to build some experience. What does 26 look like for this group? I know you have some training and travel early in the year, and then how does that build into the rest of the slate for 26? Kind of sometimes that in between year in a quad, right, where there isn't maybe that big tentpole world champs or Pan Ams or Olympics type event there on the calendar.
Well, at the end of 2026, or with the end of the summer of 2026, we will be hopefully qualified for the World Cup, which is likely going to be in Australia. We will also be hosting the Australians out here in California in August, maybe even a tournament in August. So that'll be kind of the end of our 2026 season, but it's going to kick off in incredible fashion by spending the first 2 weeks of January over in Europe. We'll be spending 1 week against Holland, a very talented Dutch team, and then we'll be spending a week against a team that finished second at World Championships, the Hungarians. And we'll be. This is something that's a little bit unusual for us because typically our athletes will be in college, will be overseas, but there's going to be a little bit of break for the European teams because all of the European teams are going to be preparing for European Championships at the end of January. So our thought and idea was to be able to, as those teams are training full time and in prep for that, we're going to send a team over there and get some incredible training, play a few exhibition games, and hopefully learn a ton about ourselves.
We have our Water Polo Passport Series that just came out earlier this week about all the Team USA athletes, men and women that are competing in Europe. Strong contingent of women there. I think Jill Romer was in Spain for about 24 hours before she won a trophy and was holding a medal of some kind. What's that experience been like for this group? You have a mixture there of some of your Olympians, but then some folks that are trying to climb the ranks. How valuable is this experience for all of those athletes?
Yeah, I've spoken to them regularly. They're having a great time. I think they're enjoying the training. It gives them a different and fresh perspective. It's great for them to be coached by someone else, whether it's me coaching them or their college coaches. There's so much to be learned by experiencing something a bit different in your training. And it's not just the coaches, but being surrounded by some of the best players in Europe. They've all had a fantastic experience so far. Obviously, big thanks and appreciation to all those clubs and coaches who are taking good care of them. And I'm sure they'll continue to prove their worth over there, and they'll continue to learn and grow. And then we look forward to bringing them back, and then maybe they can teach us a few things too down the road.
We have to close out talking about 2000. You mentioned earlier, 25 years since the Sydney Olympics. I know with LA coming up, you're so often asked to talk about your Olympic memories, and you often recount 84 and being there as a kid. But when you think back on 2000, you were right in the heart of the college game at a really huge moment when it transitions from club to NCAA. But what stands out about Sydney? What do you remember most about those Olympic Games?
I don't remember much with regards to the game. I actually remember Brenda hitting a shot down at the one spot, a little quick or go-to catch and shoot, I think, against the Australians to tie it towards the end of that game. But I remember the crowd. They played in front of 17,000 people. I think still to this day is the largest crowd ever to watch a women's water polo game. But more so, I just remember the feeling of pride, the excitement for the sport of women's water polo, for the women who didn't get the opportunity to actually play in those games that were so instrumental in making sure that it was in the Olympics. And a year later, I think we played in the first NCAA championship game. So there's just so much excitement and joy. Yes, there was a lot of competition, but the pride, knowing that you were part of something in the very beginning, was a unique feeling, and gave a buzz. And we're hoping to celebrate the 2000 team at the Legacy Crown So hopefully we can get a few of them back in the area and show our support for them. And it's, as and what I didn't mention also is just the name of the event, Legacy Crown. I also want to be clear, the legacy obviously stands for the people that came before us, that created that legacy. There's a legacy that's being created now. And then hopefully this tournament will also show the young athletes that will be shaping the legacy moving forward. So again, as I said, it's just repeating myself here, but it's a celebration of women's water polo, and it'll be a fantastic opportunity to celebrate the 2000 team as well.
How much do you think that 1-2 punch, Sydney 2000, NCAA 2001, helped kind of spur what has happened in the 25 years since, the success not just with Team USA, but at the college level and leading to events like Legacy Crown?
Yeah, no doubt. But it's also never just one thing, right? It's the creation of Title IX had an enormous impact, obviously, in women's and sport. And I think water polo was a little bit late to the field, to be honest. There were so many other sports that were ahead of us, and those sports helped propel us as a sport. But to watch it grow now, I mean, what I'm flashing back to, that's actually giving me goosebumps, is just walking into that stadium in Paris. And I know there were 17,000 in Australia, but in Paris there was 14 or 15,000, and you're looking up at this enormous, and you questioned. I always questioned whether there would be people in the top when I first walked into that place, but to see people everywhere, just gives me goosebumps to think about where this sport is gone. But we can't rest. We got to keep. There's a lot of volatility these days, and we have to make sure that we're continuing to progress. And that's another reason why we're actually having this tournament. We can't rest on what we've done. We got to continue to grow and expand and be creative in ways in which we can help grow this sport and bring it to every person in our country and beyond.
Oh, that's such a great point. And that venue was electric. And, we've talked about it too, right? There have been these amazing high water marks for the sport, right? And what's the difference between water polo and something else is we need the big days to be the everydays, right? We need that 15,000 all the time, and not just once every 4 years or once every 25 years, right? So events like this, even though they're just getting started, they certainly move the ball forward.
Yeah, and I have to say, I mean, obviously we're not expecting 15,000 at Orange Coast College.
The fire marshal would show up, so
or Costa Mesa, but our hope that the timing of this as well. I know we're going to be in Southern California, and water polo extends far beyond Southern California, but it will be the beginning of the high school season in Southern California. So our hope is to get a ton of high school athletes in the stands, obviously fans and supporters alike as well. But hopefully we can do our best to fill those stands as much as possible in this legacy, the first inaugural Legacy Crown, and get the athletes excited and coaches excited about showcasing the sport to everyone that's there.
And free admission. If you're in the area, please come on out. And if you're watching this from far away and thinking, man, I can't get out to SoCal, every game live on Overnght. So plenty of ways to watch. Coach K, thanks for being here, and we're looking forward to seeing you next month at the Legacy Crown.
Thanks, Greg.
Big thanks to Coach K for stopping by, one of our favorite guests here on the show. Now we pivot to men's college water polo, and we got a couple of non-conference matchups this past weekend and week in the heart of what is typically conference play. Both of these games airing on Overnght. Let's take a look at some of the highlights as Long Beach State and Stanford got together, and then Princeton, the Tigers, on their journey to the West Coast. They took on the defending champs from UCLA.
And same place all the way across. 4 on the clock. He's forced to shoot, and a nice goal there. That'll be credited to Corbin Stanley. And Bacharach converts there, gives Stanford a 7-4 lead. Push, goes early entry there, a backhand, good save. He's got a million guys open in the middle. He finds Bacharach, who finishes over to Francisco, who kind of handcuffs him, but is able to convert. Holding now to Bacharach. Bacharach, the rip, cross cage skip. He does such a nice job. Inside, nothing doing. Good save by Whitstone. Rebound! What a finish! And Ryan Ohl finds the back of the net. Oh my goodness. McFarland finds Bacharach. Ohl to Georgie, and Georgie finishes. Back to Bacharach. He'll shoot. Good save there from Whitstone. But be interesting to see. And there's a shot from the interior. Cross now. Francisco, a missile out of his arm. We're used to seeing that from Francisco, but we haven't seen a UCLA player. Entry pass there. A good drive pass to Alec Johnson. And pair to Soibel. Soibel back inside of Cabrakos, and he scores. Oh, and Acosta there. What a fine touring Stanley. To Arthur Diaz.
Lots of room. Brinkema still on the ball. Save Duplessis. Winds up and scores. Count it. Number 7, Finn Lasser. Carcelade. 5 seconds now. Carcelade scores. Finds Larson. Larson stepping in. Lots of room. Off the arms. Duplessis. And back up to Sherlock. Shot clock under 10. Lefty with the try, and he'll score. Cross cage. Hearing from the announcer, it sounds like a minor act of misconduct called. Coyotes looking for the far post. Instead goes Brinkema, and Brinkema goes cross cage in his own. And again, exclusion called away from the ball. Quick pass inside to McCarroll, and he converts. Showing off some speed here. Up high and denied. Duplessis, but Dodd able to steal it away from him on the rebound. Carcelade, back to Ryder Dodd, and into the post and in. Exclusion here. Quick pass, no look from Dodd. Winds up and fell with it. Some room. Dishes down. Banos cross cage and scores.
And now on to our college scoreboard. We'll talk Fordham in a moment. They just got past GW 16-14. How about Pacific putting it together here over San Jose State 13-12? Speaking of squads that are starting to round into form, UC Santa Barbara over UC San Diego 11-10. That Big West tourney is going to be a wild one. And then let's talk Skyac Redlands over Whittier 16-12. And now we stick with men's college water polo, and one of the great stories from a season ago, the Fordham Rams. We'll talk with head coach Brian Bacharach in a moment. It was the Rams that really captured the imagination of so many water polo fans and those outside of the game as well. The school from the Rose Hill section of the Bronx had been building year over year, but last year they broke through. They were the hot team going into the NCAA tourney. You'll remember that epic semifinal against USC. Wild first quarter, whistles galore. Ended up coming down to the wire. Rams had a chance to win that one. USC pulls it out. Fordham now, a year later, some change in personnel. Some of their key players moving on. They've gotten some new players involved. One change as well. When people looked at the Rams last year, they asked about their schedule. Had they played every good team available in the country? The answer was no. And we've talked on this program before, but the challenges, especially with coaches, of scheduling. If you're from the East Coast, whatever league you're in, you don't always have the built-in elite matches that you'd like. You have to try and figure out dates that'll work. This time around, Fordham, they've already played UCLA earlier in the season, their lone loss thus far. They're about to go on a West Coast swing. They'll take on Cal and Stanford. And so answering some of those questions of could they be competitive? What would happen when they took on some of the quote-unquote top teams of the Big Four? So we'll get some answers here coming soon as this season progresses. But what has gone on in Fordham, pretty special. Brian Bacharach has told the story before, and we'll talk with him more about it in our big conversation this week. But moving to New York City, not really having intentions of being a college water polo coach, let alone the head coach of a championship contending team. But that is exactly where he has found himself, and he is our latest guest here on The Counterattack. Our latest big conversation here on The Counterattack, head coach of the Fordham Rams, joining us from the Bronx, I believe. Brian Bacharach, how are you?
That's right. Head out to California in about 3 days.
All right. Well, I think water polo fans are excited about the Rams heading west. You have a pretty daunting schedule.
So are we.
Yeah. A lot of top teams. You've got Cal, Stanford, Long Beach State, just to name a few. How are you and the guys gearing up for a pretty heavy schedule once you come to California?
Well, we've been training hard for a better part of 6 weeks now. We backed off a little bit to get ready for Princeton, and we backed off to get ready for GW and Navy. But for the most part, we've been pushing the guys hard, and they have really responded. We've got a very young group. I think I counted it at one point. It's like 16 or so of our 23 guys are in their first or second year in the program, which is, you start to go through training ups and downs like what these guys have faced. But, I think, when you're young, you kind of don't know, you don't totally understand or know what's on the other side. And so it's taken some motivation in terms of that side of things, and us having to try some different things than we usually do. But I think for the most part, the guys have really responded, and in all fairness, we created a schedule, this way on purpose. We wanted some dedicated training periods, knowing that we had a young group, and knowing that we were going to, have some challenges in the first half of the year, have a few weeks where we could just focus on ourselves and getting better, and then being able to just figure out, where we needed to improve and get better in those areas, and then we'll have another test when we get out there in California. So, it was by design, but at the same time, when you have a young group, you never really know totally what you're going to get day to day and week to week. So.
You mentioned the schedule, and I talked with you before the NCAAs last year, and obviously amazing season, undefeated going into the postseason. I think the one question everyone had, well, they didn't get a chance to play X, Y, and Z. Right? I think the highest rated team you played last year was Pacific. We've discussed this. I don't think, not for lack of trying, right, to kind of get those other teams on your schedule, but how much was that?
Yeah, look,
schedule to say like UCLA, Cal, like we want to make sure we play the very best teams that we can.
Yeah, last year no one came east of those four, which was unfortunate. We would have definitely, I think, faced off with one of them if they had come east. And whatever the reasons are, we didn't get any of them on our schedule last year. Yes, we did try, but I don't know why it didn't work out. It just didn't. Yeah, those things happen. I think, it seemed to me that, based on the year that we had last year, and I think also the fact that we were able to earn a 3 seed over Stanford, going into the NCAA tournament, the MPSF teams wanted to make a concerted effort to play us, and whether it's a win or a loss on either side, it's being settled in the water. It's not going to be based on RPIs or relative common opponents. Well, you guys beat these guys by 2 points or 2 goals, and we beat them by 1 goal. That kind of stuff. Like, it doesn't come down to a feel this year. It's going to come down to actually having played in the water, which I think everyone wants. We wanted it. I think they wanted it. I don't think it's a surprise for anyone to hear that we surprised people last year, and so I don't know that everyone felt the need to make to play us in a game. For whatever reason, if it didn't work out for their schedule, I don't think it really had ever affected them, and that would be the case if you look at the 50 years of our history. So we came a little bit. I didn't think we came out of nowhere. I knew what we were building. I knew what we were developing. I saw how good we were at the end of 2023. No one else, at the top, I would say, levels of the game really were paying that close attention. We were, I don't know, 15th, maybe 13th in the country. And it was because, from my perspective, we never really got the opportunity when I felt like everything clicked in 2023 to play those teams numbers 5 through 13, or so to speak. And we did play them earlier in the year, but like by November-ish of 2023, I really felt like that group of seniors and juniors in that group had figured everything out. And we're just playing at such a high level of water polo. And then we faced in that NCAA tournament, not the number one team at the time, but the national champions in Cal. And it went how it went. And so it felt very anticlimactic, because I felt like we had put so much work and effort and into getting to the level that we wanted to and could, that it just carried over into 2024. And that spring was one of the best springs we've ever had. We were just playing at just we just carried it over. It was just such a high level. And then we added, some really great additions to that 2024 roster. And so, it was one of those things that it wasn't a surprise to me, but I think it was a surprise to everyone else. And so I think the result of that, for a long-winded way of answering your question, is that I don't think that people are looking past us anymore. And from a scheduling standpoint, or when we're on their schedule and preparing for them. So good for us for earning that, respect, so to speak, or just, I think we've earned it, and so it's exciting, to get these opportunities to play against, the Cals and the Stanfords and the UCLAs, and for that matter, Long Beach and San Jose State. I think they both went out of their way to make sure that we were on their schedule, and I don't think that was an accident either. So we're excited about our California trip. I might have overdone it a little bit, but it's we're definitely excited about it.
To find out, right? That's for sure. But
Yeah,
you mentioned the roster and the new pieces, right? And you think back to last year's team, you did lose some veterans. I think about goalie, but some other spots as well. For fans that are maybe just going to start dialing into what Fordham is doing now as we're getting to the stretch run here, how have you gone about replacing some of those key pieces? Who are some of the guys that have stepped in and stepped up?
yeah, you never completely, replace guys, and that's the beauty of building a program, is that they left their mark, and it's different. It's always different. Every team's got its own dynamic. Every team, I think you need to be, trying to maximize the talent that you have, and not necessarily, forming it to what you want, but forming it to what is best with the talent that we were able to bring in. So, with that said, guys that have stepped up, I think that we had Alessandro Salapante come in this year, a lefty that has helped us a lot. Diego Tressa, another freshman that is helping us a lot. Marco Napolitano is playing a much bigger role than he did last year. Was he got to play the National League for Nyack last year, and I think that really helped elevate his game in the off season. Andras Toth was already an All-American, but I think he's taken another step this year. The Mark Duke has stepped in as a 2-meter defender for us. So a lot of different guys that have come in and filled very important roles for us. Those guys are still developing. Yeah, they're a month and a half into their college careers. I guess 2 months if you count preseason stuff. it's still very early for them, and they're replacing guys like James Oroskovich, who, was a I think a sixth year senior, as because he redshirted and had a COVID year, that came to us from Santa Barbara last year as a center. Like, we were talking about an 18-year-old versus a 23-year-old, 24-year-old. It's a big difference. And there's a lot of examples of how we're trying to do that, and guys who have so it's not the same group, but you have to. That's the beauty of college athletics, is you're constantly bringing in new guys, and that's the fun of it, developing them, and seeing how they can do, and seeing how that group molds together.
To that end, right, you mentioned some of the key pieces that returned. I think one of the testaments to what you've tried to build there is that, yes, you lost guys to eligibility or graduation, right? But you were able to otherwise keep your group intact. And, this is across all sports become the era of player movement. For you and your staff, what does it mean to be able to have all the guys want to recommit and not, you were steps away from a championship final. They all bought back in again for another year.
Yeah. There has been some movement, I guess, in the portal. Cal picked up some great talents. I know Long Beach did as well, and it hasn't affected us quite as much. Who knows, down the road if it will or not. I hope not, but we'll figure it out if we have to, and maybe it'll benefit us too. In terms of it. And we have benefited from some more grad student than transfers, but we've got 5 grad students on our team this year, so it definitely has benefited us in that respect. I don't think a ton about it in terms of guys coming and going. I think if you build a culture and a place that people are that people enjoy being, and you're successful, you're going to continue to, have retention, and that's what we really have. Regardless of the transfer portal or any of that stuff, that's just what I believe in, and we're doing a lot of things that extend beyond the pool to try to help our guys in the classroom, in life, and whatever it might be. And I think guys respond to that and want to be a part of that. And so I think, that's just another extension of our culture. I also think that there's, we're just a unique place. Kids love going. When it's right for you to go to Fordham, people absolutely love this school. And they love going to school in New York City. They love the opportunities it presents. They love the professors that they're getting the opportunity to be taught by. And I think they, really enjoy being a part of our water polo program as well. And, that's not perfect or 100%. And, but it is what we're striving for. So I don't know, how else to to describe it, and why we've had the success of retaining people and the athletes. But I think they just enjoy being here, enjoy competing, and it's a cool place to go to school. I mean, we're right in the heart of New York City. We're a 10-minute train ride from Manhattan. We're it's a great place.
Still a ways to go in this season, right? You have this trip, you have conference play, your conference tourney. I know the goal is to get back, obviously, to the NCAAs. Last year's run was epic. That match against USC, an all-timer. What did you, a different team this year, but what did you learn from that run or from that game that maybe helps, maybe the emotion of the moment, or the way the team played or preparation? Anything you take from that you're like, hey, we're gonna adjust or adapt if we ever get in that situation again?
Well, yeah, obviously the goal is to get back into that situation. The Yes, we've talked to our guys a lot about, the emotion of that moment and controlling our emotions. There, I I think people made a lot bigger deal of that first quarter than I go back and watch it, and I don't see the craziness that everyone was talking about. Like, it was, I think what surprised people the most was that our guys were wrestling back. They were as strong, as intense as, everyone. I think a lot of people backed down to the big four, and our guys weren't afraid of that moment. And I think that surprised people. I don't know why. We had been doing it all year, but I guess we hadn't done it against those guys. Um, and like, so for me, it was we were just playing hard. I thought our first two game rolls and great game ejections were our guys just playing hard. I didn't see our guy throw a punch at all in that first quarter. Like, I just think they were playing physically, and so that from my standpoint, like, you know, if they're going to call it that way and roll guys for playing hard and physically, we got to keep recruiting depth because I don't know how else to control for it. That's my personal opinion on that game. But we did lose our emotions at some points later in the game, and it cost us dearly. And I think that was the result of what happened in the first quarter. We let it carry over into later into the game, and we did deserve some of the stuff that came to us in that end of the second quarter and whatnot. Where I was going with that was that we were definitely not perfect. Like, I think there's a lot of things that we could have done differently. I could have handled differently, that the players could have handled differently. And that's why you play those tough games throughout the year. Like that was one of my frustrations, and my inability to get those games scheduled in 2024 was that you learn from those moments, and maybe you don't make those mistakes, and maybe we have certain guys available to us in the third and fourth quarter. That makes a difference, and we don't maybe give up a few of the goals that we did, or at least not so easily. All those things I definitely felt like I learned from, they learned from, and unfortunately, a lot of several of the guys that were a part of that have graduated. But at the same time, I think they're just lessons for our staff for going forward, and so we're learning from it and trying to continue to remind and improve, on the lessons learned from that game and the whole NCAA tournament. I mean, it's funny, and I've talked to Andras and Luka as freshmen were two of the best, I think, players out there. Luka was a first-team All-American. Andras was a second or third team. And they missed some shots, and we've talked to them a lot about this, but in those big moments. But, from my perspective, I could have done some things differently, subbing and coaching-wise, in looking back, that might have helped them be a little less tired, have a little bit more energy in those moments, and maybe not miss the shots that they did down the stretch there. And I've done some things differently this year with them both, that I think is helping to allow them not just to be successful in that specific moment, but be successful in third and fourth quarters all year. And so we've been trying to implement that into everything that we do. That you have players like that you that are as talented as both of them are. You got to figure out how to get the most out of them in all situations.
The reaction, I think, from the casual water polo fan, the diehard, maybe the person that doesn't follow, was big. People were super excited about Fordham's run here. It's interesting. While Fordham might not have the history of NCAA championships in water polo, they have this great media history, and so a lot of journalists, people that are Fordham alums. I think Tony Reale was live tweeting the semifinal. What
he's a Fordham alum. So
from your perspective, when you maybe get home from California, just the response. I mean, you're getting blown up with a million texts. How did it feel to kind of take in all of that excitement around your team?
I think it goes to show that the sport really is hopeful for something different and someone different and just a different name, a different group coming in and disrupting what has been the case for the better part of 50 years, and so the both national and local and water polo community reception was incredible, and I was just happy to be a part of it. I mean, it was kind of funny, being taped during practices and having microphones on me and all that kind of stuff. It was a whole surreal experience. But like I said, great for the sport, great for our school. The university really got behind it, and good for our guys. Good for them. They earned it. As I took you through that history of 2023 it really started in 2021 with this group, and we kept adding more pieces, and it's just grown from there. But we won our first conference championship in the history of our program in 2021, and from there to 2024 and beyond, it happened pretty quickly. So quickly, but not so quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been a journey.
Yeah.
Last question for you. People that read the story of Fordham and read your story last year, there was that great Wall Street Journal article and so many other features. If they hadn't read that, they might look at what has transpired with Fordham and said, classic story of Ryan Bacharach, great player in college, became a coach and has built this program up. It's what he must have always been dreaming of, right? But you kind of moved to the East Coast, not really expecting to
a little bit of my story, so that's not true.
Exactly, right? But that's, I think, someone that didn't know you, right, just assumes this is kind of how the normal progression, but that's not your story at all. You kind of fall into being part of this Fordham staff, and then you become the head coach, and it's not, if we asked you 10 years ago, is this exactly where you thought you would be? I bet the answer would be no. And so when you come off a year like that and you have a good team once again, how do you kind of square this life you're living based off where you thought you might be 10 years ago?
Yeah, well, there was definitely some intentionality of where I'm at today. I remember when I was leaving, because I helped John Loughran as a volunteer assistant while I was at USC Business School, getting a master's an MBA and a master's in real estate development. So I helped him for those 2 years I was in business school. And I remember sitting with John and saying to him, I think I'd like to be a head coach someday. I don't know how. I don't I'm, obviously I've got a job, or I'm going into the real estate development world. But somehow I want to stay involved in the sport, and someday I'd like to figure out how I can get back. So I know that was in my head back then, but the path to getting there, I had never really had Fordham much on my radar from a water polo destination for myself. But when I moved to New York, in 2012, it was the first and only time I've not been involved in a team as a player or as a coach for a fall in my entire adult life, high school life, basically since I was a very little kid. And so I started to research it, and the rest is history in terms of helping Bill and getting involved with the program. But what I will say is that even from that first moment that I joined a spring practice in 2013, there was an element to the kids, to the program, that just felt a little different to me than some of the other stuff I had seen on the East Coast. And whatever, there's a lot of different reasons why we were where we were at that point in time, but I just felt like every year we were making a step forward. The year before I showed up, the team had won 7 games. We doubled that the next year, and then I think we were 500 the year after that. Like, it just kind of kept getting, and we kept getting higher and higher profile recruits, and just felt like there was something new that just kept me wanting to continue to grind and keep moving forward. And so, did I expect that to ascend to a Final Four and where we were in 2024? I'd be lying if I said that was where I thought we would be. But at the same time, I still feel the same as I did 12 years ago, that like it feels like there's just other elements and pieces that just keep me going and keep me driving forward, and super excited about what I'm doing on a daily basis. So it's great. Like, I think we have one of the most unique situations and opportunities in the sport, at least at the collegiate level at the moment. And I couldn't be more excited about what we're continuing to try to build as a program. So
Good stuff. Brian Bacharach, Fordham Rams. Good luck on the West Coast swing, and I have no doubt we'll see you down the road.
Thank you. Go Rams.
Once again, big thanks to Coach Bacharach and Coach Krikorian for joining us here on the show. Now let's look at our Malmsten goal of the week. In this case, our goalie save of the week. We go back out to Mesa and Rocktober. Check out the quick work here. This is Aiden Kurth of West Suburban. Tricky lob. He is ready for it. Pulls that down. That's a big stop. Love to see it. Again, don't forget, send in some of your favorite goals, highlights. You can tag at USAWP, send a direct message, send it over to Overnght as well. We look forward to sharing what you're sharing here on the show. Now let's talk calendar. Well, you know the Legacy Crown, a focal point here. Make sure you mark your calendars. November 15, 16, Costa Mesa, California. Big time event. The Legacy Crown Elite Women's Water Polo College Club Academy. Going to be a really fun weekend there. We've also got the Delfina USA Champions Cup coming to Bloomington also next month. And then into December, we've got Division III Men's National Championship and then the NCAA Championship. That'll be at Stanford. It's our plug. Make sure you tune in. You want more water polo on TV? Watch the water polo that is on TV. The final live on ESPNU, streaming on the ESPN app, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, from the farm at Avery. Going to be a great weekend of water polo as well. That is going to do it for this week's show. Thanks so much for joining us. And don't forget, when you're on the counterattack, look weak side.